Are you excited for The Witcher Season 3? Well, if you are, then you're going to like this video, because the casting setup is taking a big Game of Thrones risk. Do you want to know more? Then you're going to need to sit down and relax, because we're about to tell you everything that you need. First up, the casting call. Alright, well, The Witcher has made a casting announcement that has revealed the character Radovid. With this, the show could be making the exact same misstep that they did with the Game of Thrones and Stannis Baratheon. Are you a bit confused? Well, let me explain. Basically, both characters' revenge storyline and admirable qualities make a delicate balance that can create a lot of divisions amongst audiences. I mean, already, people are asking if this king needs to even be in The Witcher. Right now, we have other choices, like Eskel. However, this choice has made a lot of people begin to think that this show is going to be making a mistake that's already getting it compared to Game of Thrones. What do you think about the addition of this new king? Are you excited to see it? So, who is King Radovid? King Radovid V is called the Stern. He's a tactical genius, and he's also a ruthless leader who inspires his followers, who are very loyal. He's very similar to Stannis Baratheon, who is very much the same. Both of them follow a revenge arc to avenge the death of their family members. Also, both rule with an iron fist, but their followers are still loyal through their leader's sheer determination. They also commit a lot of war crimes and terrible atrocities during their campaign, which also makes them rule their subjects with the exact same kind of paranoia. Listen, no one in power should have that kind of paranoia, because then we know there's going to be some terrible things happening. We also remember that Stannis was killed earlier in Game of Thrones, the show, unlike the books, but that was all for a good reason. Radovid has the same tendencies about wanting to burn creatures at the stake. We all know what that means. He's going to be a character that many people are not going to like. I mean, if we think about Stannis Baratheon again, we know that there was some misplaced admiration for him at the beginning because he was a Ned Stark supporter. Also, he was the more responsible version of Robert. However, his descent into madness because of his desperate circumstances really led him down a destructive path where many loved ones died, and he doomed his followers. Very quickly, Stannis went from being liked to a villain, except this is an arc that's difficult to make compelling to viewers. This is because people like this can be hard to watch and can even be tedious. Many fans are wondering that since Radovid is very similar to Stannis, will he fall down the same? Who really knows? They don't want him to, because they would have to watch a character that they once liked to turn into someone they don't want to achieve their goals. I mean, the casting for The Witcher has already caused a lot of controversy, so they should have just left this character out of the show. Do you think Radovid is going to be the same as Stannis? Will we have to watch someone fall into evil? And now, what about the showrunners? When it comes to the showrunners, they've been arguing a lot about a character like this. They think that this character could work in their favor, since they already have an example to learn from. Also, the lore behind the character has already been completely fleshed out, which has given the writers the ability to pick out what they want to use and what's good for the story. I mean, Weiss and Benioff didn't have this luxury because they just decided to kill their character off when there wasn't any more original material left. Hisrich seems to know of this, and she can see how Game of Thrones failed there. She even mocked the plot problems. However, it was difficult for the writers of Game of Thrones because George R.R. Martin hasn't finished the last book yet. Well, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with this show, because we're not too sure about this new character. Do you think that the writers and showrunners know what they're doing? Also, keep watching this video because we have more information for you about The Witcher Season 3. So when will Season 3 be released? Listen, you're just going to need to accept that it's going to be a while until The Witcher Season 3 is released. Hisrich said that the writer's room wrapped up the scripts in December 2021. Afterward, they brought in the directors and some of the actors to really dive into the script and make sure that it connects well to the previous seasons and the characters' stories. Well, we know that Freya Allen, who plays Ciri, has been brought in to go over the scripts. We know that the first season only took 3 months to film, but there's a lot of VFX work to be done with this series, which is why we think that the show won't be ready until the end of 2022 or early 2023. However, don't hold me to it because I don't have any specific information. I'm just making an educated guess. What will be in the third season? This is based off the books. The third season will be based off the time of Contempt, where the political intrigue at Thanedd Island ends up in a coup. I mean, we all love a bit of rebellion. Geralt is drawn into the thick of it, but Yennefer attempts to train Ciri in magic. How does that all end? Badly. Basically, Ciri ends up being separated from her guardians, while Cahill's arc keeps moving in an unexpected direction. That's right, he ends up allied with Geralt rather than against him. We know that the show will deviate from the books, but we know that they'll take a lot from it. Do you think it's better when a show follows a book heavily, or should they always deviate a little bit? So who's going to be in it? We know that the main cast is going to be as follows: Henry Cavill as Geralt, Freya Allen is Ciri, Anya Chalotra is Yennefer, Joey Beatty is Jaskier. We have to remember that the party is leaving Kaer Morhen, so that means the other Witchers will most likely not show up in the show. However, the key politicians and sorcerers will definitely be making an appearance, such as Anna Schaefer as Triss, Mahesh Jadoo as Vilgefortz, Graham McTavish as Dijkstra. We also know that the Elven subplot will most likely not be continuing. However, we know that Mimi Dueni as Fringilla and Eamon Farron as Cahir will be making a return. Hopefully, we will see Bart Edwards as the Emperor while we explore some of the twists that were at the end of the second season. Are you excited to see the cast back together again? Who are you most excited to see? What about those new members? Which one are you ready to see? So how can The Witcher not end up like Game of Thrones? Now, many people are worried that The Witcher will turn into Game of Thrones, and there will be a lot of problems. But there are some tricks that The Witcher should follow to make sure that they don't end up doing the same thing. The first season of the show was a massive success in 2019 on Netflix. They introduced many people to the legend of Geralt of Rivia and Princess Ciri. Since the first season came out after Game of Thrones finished the same year, many people had a lot to say about the two. A lot of Game of Thrones fans found comfort in The Witcher because it was another magical world. That was why it ended up being renewed for a second season so quickly. However, they ended up expanding the world too fast in the second season, which was a bit too similar to Game of Thrones and was a problem. They need to make sure that in the next season, since they're moving to a different part of the magical realm, that they take it slower. When they introduce too much at once, it can become too confusing. A lot of viewers struggled with too many new characters and new settings in Game of Thrones. I was one of them. I was always getting myself confused with everything. When this happens, this can take away from the main characters' arcs because we're too busy focusing on the side characters that don't really need that much attention. We know that the third season will bring in some new characters and they're going to need to be established, but this needs to be done with tact. If they just throw everyone in the show, then I'm about to get really confused really quickly. How do you think they should introduce the new characters and settings? Should they take their time? Well, that's all we have for you today. Are you excited for the third season? Who are you excited to see again? What about the plot line?